Would trading for Mackenzie Gore make sense for the Boston Red Sox?
You are Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Gabby Maljanian, former ESPN social media associate and currently the host of the Boston Balling podcast as well. And I'm here to bring you the latest in all things Boston Red Sox Monday through Friday straight to your favorite podcast feed. And the best part, it's all free. So make sure you tune in because Locked On is here for you every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. Happy Wednesday. Welcome to the show. I'll be telling you a little bit more about FanDuel and how you can win lots of money later on today's show, but lots to discuss related to the Boston Red Sox today as more and more qualifying offers are being declined or accepted and mutual options and all of that fun stuff. It's that time of year now. So I'm going to be talking about Lucas Giolito, Liam Hendricks, and their fates with the Boston Red Sox, as well as an intriguing trade that could make fans interested. So there's no question about the fact that the Red Sox need to acquire starting pitching this offseason. It truly is their biggest priority and something that they need to get in order to be a World Series contending team. This is a team that certainly has talent in place, but in order to really be taken seriously as a World Series contender, getting that number 2 starting pitcher to couple with Garrett Crochet in the rotation would be an absolute game changer. And one player that the Red Sox are potentially linked to this offseason is Mackenzie Gore of the Nationals. Now, there are some things to note here about this because last year in December, when Craig Breslow traded for Garrett Crochet, it set the team up for what turned out to be its first entry into the playoffs since 2021 and only second since 2018. And it showed that Breslow's not afraid to pull the trigger and make big trades like that in the offseason if it's needed. Now, at the trade deadline is a different story. He's obviously a lot more hesitant to make those kinds of moves, but he made the trade for Garrett Crochet because that was what was needed for this team to put them in a lot better position to be competitive in both 2025 and in the future. But in order to land Garrett Crochet, he had to give up not just one, but 4 of the Red Sox organization's top prospects, including catcher Kyle Teel, who at the time was the Red Sox number 4 ranked prospect. He also gave up outfielder Braden Montgomery, whom he had selected with the Red Sox first round draft pick, number 12 overall, just a few months before that. And Montgomery quickly moved up the ladder to become the number 1 prospect in the White Sox system now that he's been there, and number 35 overall in baseball. He is going to be a stud. So that was another tough prospect to part ways with in that trade. But nonetheless, the Red Sox made the move because they needed that true ace to pitch at the front of their rotation, and they certainly got that in Garrett Crochet because of everything that he did for this Red Sox team in 2025. And Kyle Teel ending up getting the call for his major league debut on June 6th, and Chase Mydroth, which was another top prospect that the Red Sox moved in that trade, made his debut even quicker on April 11th, and both stuck on the White Sox MLB roster for the rest of the season after that, and that's valuable for the White Sox because they're a young team that's trying to rebuild, so they want all kinds of young talent to help with that rebuild. The 4th prospect traded for Crochet was righty pitcher Wickelman Gonzalez, and he was the Red Sox number 7 prospect at the time of the trade. He made his major league debut on June 20th, ultimately appearing in 16 games for the White Sox. So, lesson learned there. The Red Sox gave up a haul to get Garrett Crochet, but Breslow wasn't afraid to do it, and he made it happen. Now, Clearly, that deal benefited both organizations, so there's no regrets on either side. And now Breslow may get the chance to do this again after his own assistant general manager, Paul Taboni, was hired by the Washington Nationals as their new GM. And Taboni then proceeded to hire two of his own assistant general managers from the Red Sox and pledged at that point to turn the Nationals organization into a scouting and player development monster, which is much like the Red Sox goal had been over the last few seasons. So, with where the Nationals are at right now, they could look to make a trade with an all-star pitcher in 26-year-old Mackenzie Gore, who still has 2 years to go before hitting free agency and is projected by MLB trade rumors to receive an affordable $4.7 million salary next season. So the Red Sox like trading for pitchers under team control because they don't want to risk trading for a pitcher who could very well just hit free agency the next offseason. They want to be able to get a pitcher who's going to be under team control or at a very minimum that they can then extend beyond that. So the fact that they would have Gore for another couple seasons would be a huge selling point for the Red Sox. Now, with Taboni's declaration that he plans to develop a player development monster for the Nationals, that doesn't really sound like somebody whose focus right now is on fast tracking a return to contention. It really seems like they're focused on building up their farm system and making their player development become top tier so that they can hopefully develop young talent into what can formulate an eventual contending team. So the fact that Mackenzie Gore is there, they could see some value in that, knowing that they could get some key prospects back in return. Moving Gore could provide a serious boost to that farm system that's still in the bottom third of Major League Baseball, despite being in year 4 of a rebuild. So, I mean, obviously that's pretty sad, and it really shows that this rebuild isn't going as well as they thought. So this feels like kind of a must-do for the Nationals because it could allow them to get a prospect haul in return to help with building that farm system up, because they're not really in a place to where they're going to be able to contend now anyway. So it's best for their sake that they can go out and make this type of move to trade Gore so that they can hopefully get the young prospect talent in return. And the Red Sox could come to the rescue there. If Breslow were to deal from what is now considered the 12th best minor league prospect pool in the game, he most likely would not need to surrender 4 top prospects because Mackenzie Gore does not pitch at the same level of dominance as Garrett Crochet, who also came with 2 years of team control, but then obviously quickly signed that 6-year, $170 million extension with the Red Sox. So because Gore isn't right at Crochet's level, but is still a very good and reliable pitcher, they wouldn't necessarily need to give up 4 top prospects for him like they did for Crochet, but they probably would have to give up 2 for a guy like Gore. Trading with Washington for Gore would also mean that the Red Sox could keep their big league roster intact because Taboni's priority most likely would be for prospects. So which prospects would he deal is the question, because it could potentially be a combination of Red Sox number 3 prospects, power hitting outfielder Jhostynxon Garcia, the password. That move makes a lot of sense because the Red Sox already have an overflow of outfielders as it is, so there isn't really a spot for him on the major league team. So they could benefit because if they moved him and get a return for him, that could be good. And it could also benefit him because rather than being roadblocked in the Boston Red Sox system, he could get traded to a team where he could get a chance to contribute at a high level earlier on in his time with that organization. And also rookie league pitcher and number 12 prospect Marcus Phillips. He's a 21-year-old whose fastball reaches 100 miles an hour, and he was the Red Sox second first-round pick in 2025, going 33rd enough overall. So could that be enough to sell Taboni on parting with Gore? Possibly, but the Red Sox do have other top prospects in their system that they could give up. They could give up Peyton Tolley or Connolly Early if they feel like they only need one of those two as a pitching development experiment, they could move one of them. And if Peyton Tolley were the one that they decided to move, he could be a good fit because he's still developing. And if the Nationals are looking for players who are still developing, he could be a good mix of a player who got a taste of being at the major league level, but also a guy who's still learning at the major league level. So that could be a possibility. There's also Brandon Clark, another pitching prospect the Red Sox could give up. Infielder Mikey Romero, what do they do with him? Do they feel like he's a guy who the Red Sox could see being part of the future or not? Because the infield situation is very much a question mark right now for the Red Sox. Romero is the number 8 prospect in the Red Sox system. Is that something that could intrigue the Nationals? It's hard to really say, but if the Red Sox are determined to make a move for a guy like Mackenzie Gore, it will show that they aren't afraid to move prospects for a guy like that, just as he wasn't afraid to move prospects when it came to acquiring Garrett Crochet. Likely, if a move does happen, it will be between the winter meetings during the December 7th to 11th period, which is generally the busiest time for offseason trades. So it could be a potential. So we'll have to see if the Red Sox decide to make a move, but Mackenzie Gore could slot in very nicely as that number 2 starting pitcher. Not quite as good as Garrett Crochet, but certainly a 1-2 punch of Crochet and Gore could make a lot of sense for Boston. So we'll have to see if the Red Sox decide that they're willing to part ways with more top prospects for a guy like him. But coming up, is Lucas Giolito's future with the Boston Red Sox over? Everyone loves to be right. And with Prize Picks, you can be right and actually win money. If you haven't tried it yet, Prize Picks is the simplest way to play. You can miss out on zero excitement of this sports season with this. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player stats, and if you get them right, you win. It takes less than 60 seconds to make your lineup, and you can play anywhere that Prize Picks operates, including California, Texas, and Georgia. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONMLB for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. It really is good to be right. And the best thing about it is you can win lots of money while also unlocking lots of new features along the way. And also, the other big thing with that is that it allows you to enjoy multiple sports and feeling like you're profiting from that. So definitely download the Prize Picks app today to win money. Is Lucas Giolito's time with the Boston Red Sox over? There is a possibility that it is. Now, he declined the mutual option that he had with the Boston Red Sox for 2026. Now, mutual options, it's pretty rare that those end up panning out because usually one side or the other ends up declining it. And in this case, Giolito, the right-handed pitcher, declined a $19 million mutual option with a $1.5 million buyout, ending a contract that essentially paid him $38.5 million for 2 seasons. The 31-year-old returned on April 30th from elbow surgery in March 2024 and was 10-4 with a 3.41 ERA in 26 starts and 145 innings. Now, Giolito was obviously solid for the Red Sox in 2025. So in that regard, that likely is why he declined the mutual option, because he feels like he may get more in free agency because of the season that he had. And I really like Lucas Giolito, very personable, very much of a hard worker, and just brings his teammates around him up because of his positivity. So that's definitely something that the Red Sox could miss with Giolito. But the problem is, because of his injury history and the fact that he did again miss the end of the season in 2025 with yet another injury, would make me wary of a return to Boston is whether he's going to be able to stay on the field. Now, he'll essentially be paid a $1.5 million buyout and return to the open market in search of a new opportunity, but the Red Sox will have the right to make him a $22.025 million qualifying offer, as Giolito has not previously received a qualifying offer in his career. Now, what exactly is a qualifying offer? It's a 1-year contract offered to an eligible free agent with a salary set at the average of the league's 125 highest paid players. So essentially, if the player rejects the offer and signs with another team, then the original team receives compensatory draft pick compensation. A player can only receive the offer once in their career and must have been with their team for the entire season to be eligible. So Giolito's eligible because he's never received the qualifying offer before. So it's essentially a 1-year contract if they accept the qualifying offer. So the player has 10 days to accept or reject the offer. And if accepted, the player returns to their team for the 1-year deal at the specified salary. And if rejected, then the player becomes a free agent and their old team is then entitled to draft pick compensation if the player signs elsewhere. And that draft pick compensation, the value of the pick essentially depends on factors like the size of the player's new contract and the market size of the new team. So the team that signs the player ends up essentially losing a draft pick. Why teams extend a qualifying offer to essentially gain compensation? Because by extending the offer, a team ensures it will receive a draft pick if the player leaves, and to keep the player too. While rare, a player might accept the qualifying offer if they are looking for a 1-year deal or if market value hasn't materialized for them. So it's another ditch effort to keep the player if they want, or to manage the market, because it essentially creates leverage and puts a price on the player's value, potentially limiting the options for other teams who must consider losing a draft pick to sign that player. So it puts teams sometimes in a tough position of having to say, okay, do we want to sign him for this much and risk losing a draft pick when he may not pan out to the same level he did before? So the Red Sox have the right to extend the qualifying offer to him since he was last a member of the Boston Red Sox. So if essentially he accepts that qualifying offer, he just comes back to the Red Sox on a 1-year deal. If he does not, then he becomes a free agent and the Red Sox get a draft pick out of the deal. So it's kind of a win-win for the Red Sox to at least offer him the qualifying offer. So I'm assuming that that's something they will do. Whether Lucas Giolito accepts it or not, again, is on him. But this all started again with the fact that he chose not to accept the mutual option between the two teams because he probably, in what I'm assuming, would likely want to explore the market and see if there's a team out there that would give him more because they were maybe impressed with the 2025 season that he had. So what does this all essentially mean for the Red Sox? So essentially what this means is that this is a starting pitcher that they are going to have to try to replace in the starting rotation if he is not back. Now, he signed that 2-year, $38.5 million deal on the heels of a disappointing platform with the White Sox. He had posted excellent results from 2019 to 2021 and ended up cementing himself as one of the sport's most durable starters before logging back-to-back ERAs near 5 in 2022 and 2023. Giolito is going to be 32 next July, and he had hoped to bounce back in Boston and take an opt-out in his contract last offseason. But ultimately, he ended up tearing his UCL and his pitching elbow during spring training 2024 and didn't pitch a single inning that year. So then he naturally forewent the opt-out in his contract and returned to Boston for the 2025 season because since he didn't pitch in 2024, it at least guaranteed that he would be somewhere making money. He did stumble out of the gate, struggling so badly that for a few starts, it looked like his entire 2-year contract would go down as a bust. By early June, he had an ERA north of 6 through 7 stars. Now, granted, he started the season late because he was still recovering from injury, but it was looking really rough at first. But then all of a sudden, he bounced back significantly, beginning with 6 shutout innings against the Rays on June 10th. He took off on an extended hot streak. From June 10th through season's end, he posted a 2.51 ERA in 111 and a third innings. His 20.3% strikeout rate and 9.7% walk rate in that stretch were both worse than average, and his 244 average on balls in play showed plenty of good fortune. Even with some expected regression in his ERA, he looked like a solid mid-rotation starter for sure, because he definitely had taken a place in the Red Sox postseason rotation, obviously, at least until the next roadblock arose when on September 29th, Alex Cora announced that he was dealing with an elbow issue and would not be on the team's roster in the wild card round of postseason play, which was also a bummer because he had owned the Yankees. He had pitched so well against the Yankees that the Red Sox really could have used him in that rotation come playoff time. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. And then the next day, the Red Sox indicated that he was unlikely to return at all, regardless of how deep the Red Sox advanced in the playoff field. While his surgically repaired UCL was intact, the veteran righty was hobbled by flexor irritation and a bone issue in his elbow. So that exactly right there would worry me when it comes to the Red Sox if they were to bring Giolito back, is what would the 2026 season look like? And would it be at the point where he's pitching at the same level that he did in 2025? I'm just somehow not seeing that. And then it would kind of become a situation in which it doesn't really make sense for the Red Sox to have him at that point. So now it's on the Red Sox to issue him the qualifying offer or not. And if he does go to the open market, now the Red Sox have something to think about when it comes to their rotation, because they definitely have Garrett Crochet and Brayan Bello in there, but now they have a handful of question marks between Peyton Tolley and Connolly Early, both of whom impressed late in the season, but only have a handful of MLB starts between them. So it's such a small sample size to really know if one or both of them is going to be good enough to be a consistent member of the rotation in 2026 and beyond. Cutter Crawford missed the entire season due to knee and wrist injuries, and the latter of which required surgery. So who knows if he's going to be able to bounce back in 2026 or not. Patrick Sandoval didn't pitch in 2025 at all either, after signing a 2-year deal on the heels of his 2024 UCL procedure. And the Red Sox were hoping that he could maybe contribute in the second half of 2025, but that didn't happen. He'll be in the mix next year, but again, who knows what his role will be and what he's going to be capable of. So another question mark there. And then there's Tanner Houck, who had Tommy John surgery in August and is likely a non-factor in 2026. So that's a lot of question marks. And given all the uncertainty in the pen, the Red Sox are definitely expected to pursue rotation help this winter, which could include a reunion with Giolito, but they definitely have to look at both the free agent and trade markets and probably look to add 2 arms most likely, because if I'm thinking about it, Garrett Crochet and Brayan Bello, then if they add a number 2 starter and they add another starter, then they make the decision on 1 pitcher as opposed to 2, because if Hunter Dobbins, for example, comes back healthy in 2026, who impressed last year, he could be slotted into that rotation and you won't feel like there are as many question marks. Then you don't have to bank on a guy like Cutter Crawford coming back and pitching miraculously, and you don't have to worry about the uncertainty with Peyton Tolley and Connolly Early because of the small sample size. So it feels like they are going to definitely try to pick up at least 1, maybe even 2 starting pitchers this offseason. And we'll have to see in what form they do that, whether it's through free agency or trades. But speaking of pitching, the Red Sox and Liam Hendricks have decided to part ways, and I'm going to be discussing a little bit more about that next. But first, FanDuel is in full swing because of the NBA being back, and there's no better place to get in on that action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. If you want to win lots of money, FanDuel is definitely the way to go. So Liam Hendricks had an unfortunate time with the Boston Red Sox. They acquired him in hopes that he would be able to make a difference, but he basically spent the majority of his time in Boston injured. And when he did pitch, he struggled a lot. So as a result of all of that, the Red Sox have declined their end of a $12 million mutual option for the right-hander. So the former closer will take a $2 million buyout and return to free agency. Now, this should not be surprising at all to anybody. The writing was kind of on the wall there. For one, because he unfortunately just couldn't stay healthy during his time with the Red Sox. And I love Liam Hendricks. I think he's an easy guy to root for. He's been through so much, and he's a true role model for baseball and for perseverance. And I was really, really rooting for him and hoping that he would have a good experience with the Boston Red Sox and that he'd be able to be a reliable reliever. And nobody expected him to be a closer. I knew the Red Sox likely weren't going to make him a closer, but I at least was hoping that he would be able to contribute out of the pen in some capacity. So unfortunately, things didn't work out the way that the Red Sox wanted them to. In 2025, he had an 0-2 record with a 6.59 ERA over 14 games that he pitched in. He threw 13.2 innings with 12 strikeouts and a 1.39 whip. Now, over the last few seasons in general, he really just hasn't thrown a lot. His last really good season was in 2022 when he had a 4-4 record with a 2.81 ERA over 58 games. He also recorded 37 saves because that was back when he was still closing. He threw 57.2 innings that year with 85 strikeouts and a 1.04 whip. So 2022 was a good year for Hendricks. And then in 2023, he spent a lot of that season injured, pitched to a 5.40 ERA with a record of 2-0 over just 5 games. He recorded 1 save with pitching just 5 innings with 3 strikeouts and a 1.00 whip. So 2023, really small sample size because he just wasn't playing a lot. And then in 2025, same thing, made a number of appearances for the Boston Red Sox, but then ended up back on the injured list. So it definitely wasn't an ideal scenario for Boston. He only has 3 pitches that he really is utilizing: a 4-seam fastball, a slider, and a curveball. And the 4-seamer was definitely what he used the most. He used it over half the time at 55%. And then he used the slider 33% of the time and the curveball 12% of the time. So he didn't necessarily feel as confident in that pitch as he did in his other 2, but you really need to have a good 4 to 5 pitch arsenal if you really truly want to be successful at the major league level. And what used to work for him, he had to steer away from some of that later on in his career because of the fact that he was getting hurt. So he used to, earlier on in his career when he was pitching a lot better, have a deeper arsenal of pitches, but because he was a little restricted to 3 pitches, it caused him to struggle a little bit more and caused opposing hitters to figure him out a little bit more. So it just really seemed like that partnership between Hendricks and the Red Sox was just really not meant to be because he just had so many struggles, and it's just unfortunate the way that things went down. Now, that's a veteran presence that they're going to be losing in the clubhouse because he's a guy who truly served as a role model for the sport and for overcoming obstacles, which is huge because the Red Sox young players definitely could afford to be surrounded by guys who have overcome a lot of hardships, like with him, with the injuries and with the cancer that he had, and still being able to fight through all of that and get back to the baseball field. I mean, it's truly role model behavior. And that's something that the young players on this Boston Red Sox team could really have learned from. But the Red Sox can't really afford to keep guys around who they know are probably going to be a liability. At this point, if they want to contend for a World Series in 2026, they kind of have to weed out those players and sharpen up all areas of their roster. And while it's a hard decision from a personal standpoint to part ways with Liam Hendricks, it makes sense. And now the Red Sox do have some question marks in their bullpen. Aroldis Chapman coming back next year probably will be the closer. Garrett Whitlock, a guy who's going to pitch in high leverage again. Justin Slayton pitching in high leverage. But how are they going to maneuver that middle of the game situation? Who are they going to be able to put in as multi-inning relievers in the middle of games? Because that was where the Red Sox struggled a lot in the past in 2025, was in games that were close and they needed somebody to come in and pitch a few innings in relief because the starter maybe wasn't pitching to the level that they needed to be pitching at or just wasn't able to pitch deep into the game. The guys that they had in middle relief coming in weren't always the most reliable. They had Brennan Bernardino, who was a great pitcher for this team in 2025. Steven Matz, who they acquired at the trade deadline, was overall pretty reliable, but that middle of the pitching staff group is the group that we need to be concerned about heading into this upcoming season. And that was the group that Hendricks was a part of. He didn't really pitch in high leverage because he didn't show truly that he was on point with his performance enough to be able to do that. So now that the Red Sox have another reliever that they parted ways with, I have to imagine that they are going to be shopping the reliever market this offseason, or at least thinking about moving somebody to the pen. For example, Cutter Crawford, if they don't really know how he's going to look when he comes back, maybe considering him in the pen, at least at first, to make sure that his arm is back to where it needs to be before they put pressure on him to perform in the rotation. Maybe that's the way to go for him. And then if you think about other scenarios here, like you could put a guy like Patrick Sandoval in the bullpen. Same reason, essentially, because you don't know how his arm's going to react and if he's going to be able to start. So you have to think about all of those factors. So I'm sure their bullpen is going to look a little bit different going into 2026. But the question is, what exactly is that makeup going to be? So I'm not surprised about this Liam Hendricks situation. It's definitely what needed to happen. I hope he gets another chance elsewhere. I'm not feeling fully confident that that will happen. But I do 100% wish him all the best because he's always just been such an easy player to root for. It's just really unfortunate that it didn't work out in Boston. But big offseason coming up. We'll have to see how eager the Red Sox are to make moves to improve this team. So make sure that you are continuing to tune into Locked On Red Sox Monday through Friday with more analysis on this team. Also, be sure to check out Locked On MLB to listen to Sully talk about anything related to Major League Baseball. So make sure you check out that show next. And as always, keep the faith, go Red Sox, and I'll catch you on the flip side.